Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to this press conference for the Idaho Conservative Agenda for 2021. First of all, I'd like to point out that legislators were put in an awkward position of deciding whether or not to come to the press conference or the majority caucus, which was called a few hours ago. Unfortunately, the leadership decided to schedule caucus over our press conference, even though it was very obvious we had this press conference. So our numbers may be lower today, but that is simply because some are in the caucus and while we are here. 122 days ago, we were in the same room holding a press conference talking about a conservative agenda for 2021. We went into the session wanting to lower taxes, wanting to reduce government, and wanting to restore freedom. We've accomplished a lot of those goals. We have lowered taxes, and I would argue that the tax cuts are a lot bigger than they would have been had we not been pushing for grocery tax repeal all throughout the session. They needed to raise the amount of the tax cut in order to squeeze out any opportunity for grocery tax repeal. That does not take it off the table, though. It will be a priority next session as well. We will keep pushing for grocery tax repeal because it's what Idahoans want. We do have less government. There's been reforms in terms of the governor's duties versus the legislature's duties. We've passed, there were at least 4 bills that were passed and signed regarding that: House Bill 391, 392, and 393, and Senate Bill 1217. We've also restored freedoms, and we have tried to protect Idahoans' rights to have their health and vaccination freedoms. We've tried to protect businesses from an overreaching executive branch, and I think we've accomplished a lot of that. Behind me are a number of excellent legislators who've been very powerful in advancing the conservative agenda. I want to turn most of the time over to them. First, we'll hear from our great Lieutenant Governor, Janice McGeehan, and then legislators can take turns addressing you and fielding questions. So, Lieutenant Governor, thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for inviting me to be with you today. As Lieutenant Governor, I'm not allowed to come down into this part of the Capitol unless I'm invited, so I appreciate that invitation. And let me congratulate all of you for your efforts. And when you started out, and I remember being with you on this day as well, you had an agenda of some things that you wanted to accomplish. And so I want to just commend you, congratulate you for your effort, and congratulate you on hopefully what will be the last day of this legislative session today. We're willing to work hard on the Senate side and be done, and I understand that, and I know that you are too. We all want to get back home to our families and to our communities. I want to also just express a special appreciation to some of the debate that I was listening to on the floor of the House of Representatives. It was very good learning experience. Something that has come out of this session that I think is so critical and so important was your deep dive into some of these budgets in education and what we see happening not just in Idaho but all across the country about the theory that is referred to as critical race theory. And we know that it's happening in our universities, and there are maybe some allegations of it maybe being in our K-12 schools. We don't know, but because of your efforts of bringing this to light, we are going to, along with Representative Giddings, and maybe she'll talk about that too, we have established a task force to look at that, and so that we can all understand what is this, what is critical race theory, because there are some Democrats that refuse to acknowledge that it exists. They can't define it. They don't know what it is. They ask for examples. What is it? So the goal of our task force, the first meeting in May 27th, will be to identify, study it so that everybody can have a definition of what it is. And we will know what we need to address in the next legislative session. So thank you again for all of your efforts, and I congratulate all of you. Thanks for what you do to advance the conservative traditional values that we all treasure so much here in Idaho.
All right. It sounds like I'm next. So what I want to talk about is Idaho House Bill 300 for a second and why it's important, and that it was passed and signed by the governor as Senate Bill 1205. this year, what I see in this bill is I see it as a win for the citizens of the state of Idaho. Early on, we started with what became House Bill 300, and we hit a brick wall. And we were told that maybe next year we would see this legislation, possibly, that there were many that didn't believe it was necessary, including some of those who sponsored it. But the citizens of the state of Idaho said, no, this is what we want. We want this protection. We can see what's coming down from the federal government, and we will not take no for an answer. So thousands of emails and phone calls and possibly even some face-to-face visits occurred, and the citizens were victorious, and I'm so proud of them for that. This is what our government should be. It should be responsive to the will of the people, to what the people themselves can see as needs, what we need to do to protect our state, to raise the bar in Idaho, that we as a legislature will defend and protect the constitutional rights of the citizens of this state. Not only that, but that we will use the federal Constitution as the base. This is the minimum requirement, but in Idaho, we're going to go farther and we're going to protect it even more. It's been a great year, I think, for a lot of things that have happened in the legislature, and I've been honored to be here and serve. Thank you.
All right, I'm Representative Tammy Nichols from District 11 in Canyon County, and one of the things that I worked on really hard this session was in regards to vaccinations and mandates. And so I had House Bill 63, which was on vaccines, inoculations, immunizations, and genetic modulations. And so that bill had a lot of support. I continue to hear from those all around the state and even other states in regards to the importance and why we need this bill passed. Unfortunately, I could not get a hearing in front of the Health and Welfare Committee for it. And so I did run it as a personal bill. What I did do, though, is I did take the essence of that bill and I put it in a resolution, and that resolution was allowed to be heard in a committee. It passed unanimously in the House and then was held in the drawer in the Senate side with the chairman, Senator Martin, over there. And so unfortunately, it did not. What's that? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I thought I was being corrected, but that's okay. And so it did not get a hearing on that side, and that's unfortunate because we continue to hear from Idahoans especially that are very, very concerned in regards to what's transpiring in possibly forced vaccinations, inoculations, and such, both for schools, for our children, for employment, and so forth. I also did work on a bill with a few other representatives in regards to vaccine passports. That has also been a concern I've been hearing, or I should say we've all been hearing in regards to our citizens in the state of Idaho. They are concerned with this becoming a reality. We see it happening in other countries. Israel is one of them. And so people want to make sure that their freedoms are not infringed upon, that they are not forced to have to provide documentation like occurred during the Nazi Germany era in the 40s, to be able to travel, to be able to go to stores, to be able to be employed, and so forth. So that is a concern. There is a lot of support for that one too. That was done a little bit later in the session, so unfortunately it just was not given the time that it needed. I will be bringing these bills back again. I think that they are needed, they are necessary, and I believe we owe it to our state and to the great people here in Idaho to make sure that their rights, individual liberties, are protected regardless of their vaccine status. So anyway, that is what I worked on, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Hanks from District 35, and my mask mandate prohibition bill ties in with the vaccine prohibitions that we've been trying to do. My bill, the mask mandate prohibition bill, House Bill 339, did pass with flying colors in the House, 47 to 22, I believe. Then it went over to the Senate, and as Representative Nichols stated with hers, my bill got stuck in kind of in limbo because I was asked to horse trade that bill for it to get a hearing, I was requested to vote on something else, which I could not do. I think we should vote on things according to their merit. So it was bounced basically between two Senate committees, Senate State Affairs and Health and Welfare. And I was told Health and Welfare was closed down, so obviously there would be no option for it to go. Some people are not returning to work because they cannot or will not wear a mask. And so I think that's really important, that we address that, and I think it is being addressed finally at this point. But my main concern in bringing that bill forth was our mental, our physical health. We should not be required to wear something like that unless, our doctor maybe asks us to or recommends it. And we have personal rights. This is one of our personal rights as we've talked about in our Constitution. So that's the status of that bill. And I appreciate all of you who have reached out, who have contacted our legislators and tried to get that passed. So we'll keep on working to get the freedoms that we need to have for our families, for our constituents. Thank you.
Excuse me. All right, my turn. Okay. Vito Barbieri, District 2. A lot of positive things to talk about. Some negative things. Not much progress was made on Idaho state sovereignty. We're still taking billions with federal strings. Not much progress was made on an independent, strong legislature, which is evidenced by the AG's intrusion into our recent ethics hearings. Not much progress was made on legislative rule review. We're not even following the statutes requiring an interim germane joint committee to address these rules and recommend to the body. But there are a growing number of us that are going to continue to work on the liberty of our individual citizens and voters. We're going to work to strengthen the legislature for a better representation of the people that are voting us in. Thank you for your time.
Are we good? Okay. I'll just point out that I have a press release listed here. Do you want Dorothy? Representative Moon. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Dorothy Moon, District 8. And what I wanted to talk to you about is an update on Common Core, getting rid of it, replacing it. So we just recently put another letter out to the State Department of Education and State Board of Education about our desires to make sure that we have our own standards that are Idaho's, and being replaced with other standards. That's what we worked on all last summer. I just received a letter from the State Department of Education stating that there will be small groups for ELA and for science. Math just needs a little bit of work. Those are pretty well, we have removed the crazy math out of those standards. So what we've got our teachers, retired and pre-Common Core teachers will be meeting over the next few weeks and aligning these standards and making sure they are our own. So that's very important. So I'm excited. When I first ran, I ran to get rid of Common Core standards. We're getting there. Anyway, so really excited about that. Thank you.
Priscilla Giddings from District 7. Overall, we've had a lot of progress with the conservative agenda. If those of you who haven't had a chance to see it, it is online, and the biggest things are lowering taxes. Huge successes this year, the largest tax relief in the history of the state of Idaho. We are also pushing for less government and trying to restore freedom. We have put forward hundreds of bills and proposals. Patriots across Idaho are waking up to the process more than they ever have in the history of Idaho. We've had people showing up to testify, drafting legislation, and I just want to thank all Idahoans for caring about our government. But what you have learned is that right now, government is broken. The legislative process is broken. We just did a tally. We had more than 185 pieces of legislation. Most of those our ideas from you, from Idahoans, that are not being allowed to go through the legislative process. That is a broken legislative process. And because of that, we have an executive branch who is just ruling over the people. In the last year and a half, we've had 25 executive orders that are being used to enforce laws, to remove laws, and they're usurping the legislative process. And that's a problem. We have several things that have come up recently, whether it's federal unemployment or vaccine mandates, things that need to go through the legislative process. We have bills to do it. The legislature is not allowing the process to work, and so the governor is issuing executive orders. So we are being ruled in a state of emergency through executive orders. And that is very problematic to our republic, and that's very alarming to all of us. The group of conservative legislators is growing, but no matter how many conservative legislators we have, we need a strong, courageous leader in the executive branch. You know, our nation is in a very troubled, uncharted waters right now. And we have strong conservative governors that are stepping up. We have Governor Noem, we have Governor DeSantis, we have Governor Abbott, who are taking courageous leadership steps to move their country through this uncertain times. And so right now, we need strong conservative leadership from our executive branch. And the only way we're going to get that is through our 2022 elections. And so I just encourage everybody, all Idahoans, to get involved in the process, get involved in the upcoming election. Your voice does matter. You can be heard, but it's going to take all hands on deck. With that, I do want to end with one optimistic outlook as we attack the issue of critical race theory here in Idaho. You know, Idaho did lead the way, and it actually, I will say, it started off in our Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, where the first sign of it we saw in a childhood development grant. They wanted federal money being given to 0 to 5-year-olds to be used to teach children that by being white you are privileged. And we don't subscribe to that theory here in Idaho. And we pushed back. We pushed back in our K through 12 budgets. We pushed back in our college and higher education budgets. And we're pushing back against our libraries. We're pushing back against public television, who is teaching that white parents are inherently the problem. And that babies as young as 3 months old are displaying racist tendencies. We don't believe that. And we did push back. And so we were the first in the nation to lead the way, to say we're not going to subscribe to that. But the problem and the fight is not over, because it is still coming through federal regulations and through additional monies that are coming down. And so I really appreciate the courageous leadership of our Lieutenant Governor McGeehan, who has initiated a task force to address this issue. And I am honored to co-chair it. We have Idahoans all over the state who are going to participate, and we need parents to help us through this process. Because if we're going to be able to push back from 0 all the way to higher education, it's going to take a community effort. It's going to take parents and teachers and professors to say, you know, in Idaho, we believe in individual responsibility, and we don't believe in systemic racism. And so we have had some victories, but we really encourage you all to stay involved in the process. And I just want to thank Representative Nate and all of the courageous legislators here and who are part of the conservative agenda for being willing to go against the liberal narrative. So thank you all.
Thank you. And you can see what great conservative leaders we have in this room. If only that conservatism and leadership were matched in the House and Senate, we could get some good things done. Representative Giddings makes some good points there, that there's 185 held bills. Among those held bills are bills to end abortion completely in Idaho, to end Common Core, to end SBAC testing, to repeal the tax on groceries, and restore freedoms and economic freedoms to Idahoans. There's still a lot of work to do. It's great to have dedicated leaders like those behind me who are the conservative leaders for the state of Idaho. I'll echo the sentiments that I appreciate all the outreach from Idahoans who are involved in the legislative process. Elections in 2022 matter a lot. And I'll just finish by saying there's copies of our press release up here, and we'll linger for a few minutes for questions, but we do need to run up, a lot of us need to run up to a caucus meeting. Thank you again for coming. I can't say enough appreciation for the legislators here. Thank you.